From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast, and I am your host, Chris Terrell, and welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you, champion? What new challenges did you encounter? And what failure did you go through? But more importantly, you went through that failure. What lesson did you get from that failure? Come on now. That's your reward for your trouble. Don't let a failure go by without getting a lesson. Now, if you're new here, I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic yo-yo dieting. Up, down again, before I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I made some permanent, meaningful, and actual changes to my lifestyle, habits, routines, to my environment, community, and to my system of beliefs. Because it's all those things that create me, and all those things create you as well. And if you're going to lose the weight and keep it off, you're going to have to go right to the core of who you are and change those things so that the results can be lasting. If you want permanent results, you have to make permanent changes. Temporary changes bring temporary results. And I don't know about you, I have done many times that round trip ticket to Thinville, where you lose a bunch of weight, get all the way down there, go, I love this new body. I'll never go back to the life I was living before. And of course I did. Slowly, very, very slowly, I would put the old life back in place, including the pounds, 1 pound after another, until finally one day I'd wake up, look in the mirror and going, I'm back. I'm back in the big body again. I didn't want to be here. Why am I here again? And I don't want you to do that. So if you're looking to lose weight from somebody that finally figured out how to overcome yo-yo dieting and has helped other people do it, well, you're in the right place. Because I do this every day. This is my life. This is all I do. But if you're looking to lose weight from somebody that learned something in a book, never actually had a problem themselves with weight loss, and it's all just theory, well, you're in the wrong place. Because here we're going to talk about the common sense, practical ways to actually lose weight, and we're just going to call spades spades here. We're going to shoot straight, and I'm going to say it how it is, which is, look, if you are overweight, you're going to have change. This is not about carbs. You don't need another diet plan. You don't need another exercise routine. You don't need to know how to optimize your macro distribution. I don't care how perfect you are at tracking calories. None of that matters. Because the reality is, if I walk into a person, they're like, hey, how's your weight loss journey? And all they do is tell me about the weight they've lost, I know they ain't got it. You don't got it yet. You're focusing on the wrong things. Because if you want to lose the weight and keep it off forever, that means you need to change. You need to change in the core level. You need to change who you are today. Look, you're gonna change anyway. You just might as well do it on purpose, with a little bit of design, with a little bit of intentionality behind it. That is called personal growth. I didn't lose the weight. I outgrew my weight. And honestly, I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing. I want to encourage you to outgrow your weight. Now, if you have not joined my free Facebook group, I would love to invite you to come join that free Facebook group. You can find a link to that by going to christerrellcoaching.com, or you can find a link to it in the show notes of this podcast. Also, in the show notes of this podcast, if you are a Spotify listener, you will find a spot where you can leave direct comment to give me feedback. And I love reading the feedback that you all give me on these episodes. In this last week's episode, I got a bunch of feedback. I'd like to go ahead and spotlight a few different things that people said about last week's episode of the podcast in case you missed it. First one comes from Katie Lambeth. Holy shit, Chris. I think I just realized what I needed, that I needed someone to be completely raw and honest with me. I hadn't had that before. First time listening, and I'm going to listen to more. Katie, welcome to the podcast. So glad you're here. Next one from Tina Ortiz. Hey, Tina, I've seen you in the other comment sections before. I recognize your name. This is why I come back every week. This is why I share your podcast to every person I know wants to lose weight. This right here. Keep up with the real talk and motivation. I cried hearing the truth. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you cry, but hopefully it was a good cry. Hopefully it was a thing that you needed to hear. Sylvester says, you rock, Chris. Thanks for all the great work. And Linda Lou, I believe is how you'd say that here. This podcast was great. Lots of valuable information. I'm going to listen to it every day for a month and then reevaluate and listen some more until I become a champion. Hey, so if you want to leave some feedback here on the podcast, I would love to have you do that there on Spotify. And if you are an Apple Podcast listener, I would love to take a moment to request you to leave a 5-star review of the podcast, only if I've earned it, though. So if you're new here, please be sure to give the podcast a listen for several episodes. And if I have earned that review, I would love to go ahead and get that review. I'd like to read the last review that was given from Kimbra Moore. Chris Terrell is the real deal. He understands the science of fat loss, and better still, he understands the psychology of a personal weight loss journey. He has given me many insights and aha moments. If you are on a weight loss journey, this man is worth your time. Well, thank you so much for that kind review. And so the next thing also is my YouTube channel. So I'd like to invite you to come join my YouTube channel where I go live there every Monday. You can just search for Chris Terrell Coaching on YouTube and you will find it there. I would like to this week read from my journal here. Before, I'm not going to introduce a topic. We're just going to jump into it and have a conversation with me doing all the talking. If that makes sense. So, I want to just pretend for a moment you were just sitting here. And this is something I wrote years ago. And in my journal, I like to do thought experiments, thought exercises. And I did this one where I imagined a person walked up to me and just said, "How do I do what you did?" Because the reality is that happens, right? I mean, my job is trying to help people understand how to do what I did, because I know you're here because you want the results I got. You want to lose the weight and keep it off, as well as find yourself absolutely loving every aspect of your life along the journey. That's what I did, and I know you want that too. But wow, I mean, it has taken me years, and there's so much that I've learned, and I've often thought, like, well, what should I tell a person at the very beginning of a personal transformation journey? If they come to me and say, "Chris, I want to transform like you did," what is it? What would I tell them? What would I say to send them on their way? And so let me read this here. And then after we do this, we're going to jump into psycho-cybernetics for the rest of the episode today, which is another book. So let me jump in here. This is from my journal. To get my results, you must learn 2 lessons. The first lesson is that time is limited. It's finite. No amount of money can buy back time. It's the one resource we all share in common. If you let it pass with no forward progress, you're not allowing time to serve you. To get my results, you must learn the value of time. The second lesson is the power of action. The smartest person is the one who turns knowledge into doing. You must learn the importance of doing. Knowledge is potential power. Action unlocks the power. You must feel the power of action. You must find joy in the doing and not the result. Of course, there is more beyond these. However, you can't learn either concept till you experience them working together. These concepts must be experientially learned rather than by intellect alone. To learn them but not experience them is proof you have not learned them at all. So I want to unpack that for a second, why I wrote it the way I did. It's only 2 pages, so I just read first page and then there's a second page. And I was very careful with every word that I wrote. This was a fun little thing. And behind every sentence is an entire concept, an entire days of education that went behind it for me, learning what I learned to put each sentence here. So before I unpack what I wrote here, I want to jump over here to the book Psycho-Cybernetics. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm holding up my copy of it right here. You can see which version I'm in. This is the updated and expanded version, and I'm on page 98 for anybody that might be wanting to follow along. There's several versions of this book out here, so it's possible it's a different page number. But I am in the section, which is possibly one of the most referenced sections for me in the entire book. And it is form the habit of consciously responding to the present moment, which is in the chapter, Relax and Let Your Success Mechanism Work for You. So your success mechanism, as the author, Maxwell Maltz, explains it in the book, this is your mind's ability to think. Right? That's your success mechanism, your thinking mind. So let's jump in. Let me read here, and then we'll tie why am I doing this, and how does this relate to you? Consciously practice the habit of taking no anxious thought for tomorrow by giving all your attention to the present moment. Your creative mechanism cannot function or work tomorrow. It can only function in the present today. Make long-range plans for tomorrow, but don't try to live in tomorrow or in the past. Creative living means responding and reacting to environment spontaneously. Your creative mechanism can respond appropriately and successfully to present environment only if you have your full attention on present environment and give it information concerning what is happening now. Plan all you want for the future. Prepare for it. But don't worry about how you will react tomorrow or even 5 minutes from now. Your creative mechanism will react appropriately in the now if you pay attention to what is happening now. It will do the same tomorrow. It cannot react successfully to what may happen, but to what is happening. So this is going to be another mindset episode of the podcast, and I am not going to dumb this down today. Like we're going to get a little heady here. Several of the recent episodes have done this, and I've gotten positive feedback that you all liked this. And so I'm going to do it again. We are going to get a little deep here. You will probably need to listen to this episode multiple times to gather all the concepts, because some of these concepts I'm not going to really pause to kind of crack open. We're just going to sort of fly by a couple of them. So there's a reason why I read these two sections. Let me rewind the clock 5 years ago of my life today at the time of recording this podcast. My father is about to die 5 years ago. And a month prior from now, I just found out he was about to die. I just found out he had less than 2 months to live. And when that happened, when I found out my father has less than 2 months to live, for the first time in my life, I truly understood the value of one single minute of life. I finally understood it. I understood, finally, that when a second of time has passed, it is unretrievable. It is gone. And I finally, for the first time, understood that time is finite. It's impermanent. There is a fixed amount of grains of sand that my life will transpire within. There's an hourglass for my life, and the top of it is covered with a piece of paper. My father had that, and I was given I'm going to call it opportunity because I don't know what other word to use, and I'm going to use a powerful one, opportunity to have the card removed from the top of the hourglass of my dad's life. And I could see that the grains of sand were running low and that it was about to be empty. All of us could. And so back to what I wrote in here. The first lesson is that time is limited. No amount of money can buy back time. And I'm sitting there with my dad, my family around, and I looked to him and I said, I think we now understand the value of time. And this flipped a switch in my brain. I didn't understand the impacts of flipping the switch. I didn't understand the ripple effects that were going to come into my life by flipping the switch and allowing myself to emotionally connect with the reality of life's impermanence. And maybe you listening, maybe you'll let yourself accept it, that life is impermanent. The reality is, that day, I contemplated my own death. That day, I accepted I'm going to die. There's a saying, I've heard it attributed to several people at this point. I'm not entirely sure where it came from, so I'm not going to. It might have been Confucius. But we all live two lives. And the second life begins when you realize you only have one. And that's what happened to me that day. I understood I've only got one life. And In the book Psycho-Cybernetics, he talks, practice the habit of taking no anxious thought for tomorrow by giving your attention to the present moment. Something I did not learn till way later was that I understood the value of time in the beginning of my transformation journey, but I didn't understand at that moment the power of the present. Somewhere along my journey in the next year, I started to be awakened to the concept of presence. I started to be awakened to the idea that maybe, just maybe, constantly living in the future, chasing a goal in my mind, is causing me to miss the greatest present that I have, which is the present. And I also began to realize slowly that spending my days ruminating and living in the past, especially imaginations of an alternative reality in the past, was costing me the present. The mind can only operate in the present moment. Your mind cannot operate in the future, because when it's operating in the future, it is now the present moment. And I didn't understand that in the beginning of my journey. And I'm hoping that by explaining it to you, maybe you'll pick it up a little bit faster than I did. Maybe you'll begin to realize that time is finite. Your life is going to end. It's not an if, it's a when. My life has transformed ever since I started to daily contemplate the end of my existence. On my journey, I heard Steve Jobs' commencement speech, and it's really resonated with me, and I constantly ponder the words every day. Because the reality is, one day will be my last day, and I probably won't get to know it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Many people don't know their last day is their last day. And when I started saying to myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what it is that I am about to do? Those are the words from Steve Jobs. And he went on to say, because one day you'll most certainly be right. And if the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. When I looked at my life, I began to realize I was living a life not in a way that I was happy with. I was trying to make the best out of something I didn't like. I had jobs I didn't enjoy. I had a social life that wasn't what I wanted. My financial situation isn't how I wanted it. I didn't even like the house I was living in. My life was full of stress. My life was full of uncertainty. And my physical body was literally painful to live in. It was an uncomfortable existence across many spectrums of life. And I wasn't doing anything to fix it. I was coping. I was learning how to be happy and settling. I was settling for mediocrity. And the reality is, the only reason I was doing it is because I didn't believe it could be different. That's why. I needed to believe it could be different. But before I could do that, I needed something even deeper, something I didn't have. I needed a true, genuine desire to make my life better. So that when the nudge came, there was a desire that was being awakened. Thankfully, I hadn't fully given up on myself yet. And here I write in my journal, the second lesson is the power of action. I prided myself at being smart. I loved being as I thought in my own mind arrogantly, the smartest person in a room. I somehow mistook knowledge for results. Let me just learn more. Let me put more and more and more in my brain. Have you ever noticed, though, that sometimes people are successful and they're not the smartest? That used to bother me. I used to think, well, maybe it's just because I don't deserve it. No, it was I missed the important lesson. The lesson of doing. You see, I wrote here, the smartest person is the one who turns knowledge into doing. Knowledge is not power. I once believed that it was. But knowledge is nothing more than stored up potential. When you gather the knowledge, you are storing potential within you. The knowledge is good, but knowledge with zero action will get you zero results. I think of it as a math formula. If I have 1, which will be the knowledge, times the second variable, which is action, equals results. So knowledge times action equals results. So if I have 5 knowledge times 0 action, I will get 0 results. If I have 1,000,000 knowledge times 0 action, I will get 0 results. If I have 1 knowledge times 500 action, I will get 500 result. You see how that formula works? If the action in the formula is a 0, you will always have 0 results. You cannot learn your way to success. You need to learn. I'm a big believer of learning. I think you should study and learn all the time. Anybody that knows me knows I am a lifelong student, always reading, always trying to learn more, never satisfied. I am insatiably curious, and I've been that way since I was a kid. But I didn't realize that curiosity is useless if I don't pair it with action. A large part of my last week's episode was a call to arms. It was a call to action. I was trying to look to many of you and say, stop kidding yourself and acting like you're doing anything. Talking about weight loss isn't weight loss. Listening to me on a podcast isn't weight loss. Going and tracking your calories isn't weight loss. Action creates the weight loss. That's what makes it happen. Action. Everything should be done to serve getting you taking more action. So let me continue on what I wrote here in my journal. I imagined as I did that first page, I sent the person off. Here's your 2 lessons. Go off into the world, go live your life, and go learn the 2 lessons. The lesson of time and the lesson of action. Go learn what those 2 are. And I said to go learn them experientially. And the reason why I said experientially is because I have learned over the last 5 years that there are many things in life that can only be learned through firsthand experience. Talking about it doesn't work. It's something akin to how a menu would be to a dinner. A lot of times, if you're just talking about weight loss, it's like trying to understand how a food tastes based off of reading the menu. Well, no amount of menu reading will ever be a substitute for just picking up the food and putting it in your mouth. And now you know what it tastes like. Or my preferred way of explaining this concept is salt. Have fun. Go try to explain what salt tastes like without using the word salt, without using the word savory. You will discover that no words will ever do justice for explaining what salt tastes like. However, if you want to know what salt tastes like, you could literally just pick up 2 or 3 grains of salt, drop them on your tongue. You now instantaneously know what salt tastes like because you learned it experientially. You learned it through an actual experience in the world. And I have come to realize a lot of mindset work, the reason why a lot of people don't progress and they don't make changes is because they're attempting to learn on paper. They're trying to intellectualize the concepts of mindset work and go, okay, I see how this is going to work. And then, of course, it doesn't work that way because some things you have to learn it through firsthand experience. It's the only way you can learn it. Everything else just falls woefully short. It'd be like describing a song. You can describe a song all you want. It will always fall short to just hitting play and listening to the music. You can describe a movie all you want, but it will always fall short of just hitting play and letting the person watch the movie. There are so many lessons on your weight loss journey that you need that I could tell you about till I'm blue in the face, but it will fall woefully short to you just going out and having the experience. As an example, I can tell you how crazy it feels to lose weight on easy mode, but until you go do it, you won't know. So let's continue on with my reading here. I imagine the person goes and they come back and they're like, all right, I've learned the 2 lessons. So now let me respond. Congrats. You have learned the 2 lessons. You now understand the power of small actions made consistently over time. You now know how small actions can create big change when it is paired with time. You should have learned, however, the harmonious lesson of patience. Patience will act as a sustainer. It's the quality that ensures you will wait for results. It is now time to learn the next lesson. The 3rd lesson is the power of belief. Belief is not absolute fact, absolutely. Belief is your conclusions drawn from the thoughts of your mind. Your beliefs create results. You must learn of your beliefs. More importantly, you must identify the source of beliefs. Where did they come from? The 4th lesson is that fear is not your enemy. Fear is you. You are fear. Without fear, you wouldn't know which way to go. Your fear loves you. Why do you reject it? You must learn to hear the wisdom fear brings. You do this by learning the harmonious lesson of opposition in all things. There are 2 sides to every story. The truth will be found between them. So before I come and unpack this, let's go to psychocybernetics here. Continuing where I left off on page 98, Dr. William Osler, author of A Way of Life, said that one simple habit, which could be formed like any other habit, was the sole secret of his happiness and success in life. Live life in day-tight compartments, he advised his students. Look neither forward nor backward beyond a 24-hour cycle. Live today as best you can. By living today well, you do the most within your power to make tomorrow better. We come back to this concept of being present in the day. Live each day in day-tight compartments, looking neither forward nor backwards. And the reason why that's important is because weight loss will be accomplished one moment at a time. And it is the way you conduct yourself in each individual given moment that will determine the results that you have. It's a big math formula. And you have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of variables. Many, many moments in time. Some moments will move you incrementally closer toward your goal. Some will move you incrementally further away. And some moments will leave no change. You will be neither closer nor further. And you won't always know. Sometimes these increments will be big. Sometimes these increments will be microscopic in nature. Teeny, teeny, tiny. Almost imperceptible. But one of the things to remember is that time is going to pass no matter what. The next hour of your life is going to pass, and there's nothing you can do about it. Dinner is going to come around today, and there's nothing you can do about it. Tomorrow, lunchtime is going to come around. There's nothing you can do about it. The day after that, dinner will come again. There's nothing you can do about it. You are going to get hungry at some point today. There's nothing you can do about it. You're going to get hungry again tomorrow. There's nothing you can do about it. It is going to happen. Time is going to pass. And as a result of this time passing, things are going to occur. Well, wouldn't it be a shame if a bunch of time passes and you have nothing to show for it? One of the things I realized at the beginning of my journey was, if I had just started 5 years ago doing it the stupid slow way of half a pound a week every other week, I'd have been done years ago. But no, I wasted decades of my life hunting for a shortcut to weight loss. And you know what happened? I found lots of shortcuts to weight loss. And you know what else happened? I gained all my weight back every time. How about you? You see, I was focused only on dropping the number on the scale with time. I wasn't focused on how do I change. And when I finally, in the beginning of my journey, the gift my father's passing gave me was the understanding of the value of time. And his final piece of advice to me, which I'm not going to get into today, was essentially, though, to stop waiting around and take action. My father gave me the final 2 lessons of his life. Time will pass, he taught me by example. Stop waiting around, he told me with his words. Point blank. The words of a dying man. Stop waiting around. And so I started taking small actions consistently over time. And one of the things that happened unintentionally is I learned patience. I once thought that patience meant I was patient in my own head. Like, I don't want to go faster. I'm okay with it going slow. I've now learned patience is determined by your conduct, not by your state of mind. In fact, there are many times on my journey I felt wildly impatient. For an overwhelming majority of my journey, I was very tempted to crash the weight off, to go back on keto and diet it off fast. Let me tell you, after I had lost 75 pounds, I was pretty consistently keeping it off, and I was feeling pretty amazing. The temptation to go faster only increased because I kept thinking to myself, well, I think I can keep it off. Might as well just crash it off and then focus on sustainability after that. And I kept saying, no, go slower. I don't care that I want to go fast. We can't go fast. We have to go slow. Patience is determined by your conduct, not by your intentions, not by your state of mind. If you are patient in your mind, but you're impatient in action, you are an impatient person. If you are impatient in your mind, but patient in your action, you are a patient person. I didn't know that. When I realized that, I began to understand that Chris Terrell is actually a very patient person. I'm willing to wait for results. And to help me in my patience, it helped to have something to do while I passed the time. That was really important. And so, but back to what I said here. It is now time to learn the next lesson. The third lesson is the power of belief. I, for a majority of my life, confused belief and fact. I can't lose weight because of such and such. That's a belief. I can't eat carbs. If I eat any carbs, I'm going to gain weight. That's a belief. It might be grounded in some sort of quantifiable fact. That's possible. But everything you learned just about everything you learned from someone else. And the things you didn't learn from someone else, the input you got, the stimulus you got, the information you got that you used to come up with your own conclusions, you got it through one of your 5 senses: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. That's how you perceive the world. You have these sensory factors that allow you to see and perceive what is happening in the world outside of your skin. And with those sensory factors, a lot of things you learned, you were taught by somebody else. You read it in an article. Somebody told you what it was. Or maybe you deduced something experientially. And unfortunately, due to cognitive bias and correlation doesn't equal causation, many times we take the wrong lesson away. Like in my case, when I didn't eat carbs and I lost weight, I took away the lesson, carbs make me fat, which was wrong. That was just objectively wrong. But it was the belief that I held, and I operated under that belief. I discovered on my journey the line, he who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right. When I heard that, that just resonated within my head for days and days and days and days on end. Here I am years later, still pondering the first time I heard that. He who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right. If I say I can't lose weight, I'll be right. But if I say I will lose weight, I will be right. The trick is I have to keep saying it long enough, because I'm not going to let myself be wrong, and neither will you. And I figured that if I just kept saying to myself, I'm losing weight, I'm losing weight, I'm on a weight loss journey, I'm losing weight, I'm on a weight loss journey. If I keep saying it, I'll eventually either A, stop saying it so that I feel right because I don't like the feeling of being wrong, or B, I'll start losing weight so that I get to feel the feeling of being right. So on my journey, it became essential that I learn how to spot my own beliefs, how I can spot where I'm limiting myself. And one of the beliefs that I held was that fear was something to be conquered. I believed that my fear was my enemy, that I needed to overcome fear. The reality is, I was wrong. I was just not correct. Because that conclusion was drawn from my beliefs, and my beliefs were formed in error. I learned that fear is me. Whenever I have fear in my head talking to me, it's not someone else. It's me. It's my own mind talking to me. And I started realizing over time that my fear loves me. My fear cares for me deeply. My fear wants me to be safe. But because I'd had such a dysfunctional relationship with my fear, whenever fear would talk, I didn't know how to respond. I would react violently to it. I would react harshly to my fear. Or I would let the fear trigger my emotions so intensely that I would just want to run from them. But on my journey, I started to discover that my fear is seeking to keep me safe. You must learn to hear the wisdom fear brings. You do this by learning the harmonious lesson of opposition in all things. My fear will often come into my life and tell me how something can go wrong. But if I just take those and flip them, fear is simultaneously telling me how everything could go right. If you do this, if you have one piece of pizza, you might lose control and keep eating the pizza and go over your plan, which of course, you know, if you do that, you're going to feel really demoralized and you're probably going to go on a bender for 3 days and then maybe you'll get back on it Monday. This one piece of pizza might be the beginning of the end. You can't have that piece of pizza, fear might say. But did you know that if you just take everything fear said and invert it and look at the opposite, you'll begin to understand that fear also told you another message simultaneously, which is, did you know it's possible you could have just this one slice of pizza and then stop, which would then show you that you do in fact have the willpower. You can in fact trust yourself. And if you trust yourself, that means you can have pizza whenever you want. Because let's be real, pizza is not the problem. It's 9 slices at once, done several times a week. That's the problem. It's the volume and the repetition. That's the problem. And you could just have one. It could work out. That's what fear is also saying. But what happens is when fear would show up, I wouldn't question the other side. I've begun to see that fear lights the way to success. I used to move away from my fear. Fear says, don't go over there. Fine, I don't go over there. Don't do this or you'll be triggered. Don't stop tracking calories, otherwise you'll lose your streak. Don't eat this, otherwise you won't stop. Don't do that or you'll gain some weight. Don't do that or you'll get hurt. Fear's telling me all those things. But I don't have to listen. And when I mean listen, as in I don't have to heed everything fear says. I discovered that fear is just saying, hey, here's how it could go wrong, and I'm worried about you. I'm worried that if it goes wrong, it's going to hurt. And I don't want you to hurt anymore. So maybe you shouldn't do it. But now I've learned I can respond to fear differently. I can say, fear, I hear you. I hear you. And you're right. You're right, fear. If I do what you said, I will get hurt. And I don't want to feel hurt either. You and I are on the same page, fear. But I think we can do this. And even if we don't, we'll be okay. We can do this one more time together. My fear, however, would be so afraid in these moments that it gets desperate when it realizes I'm not going to blindly trust it at first. And so fear would then show up with all manner of, I don't want to call them insults, but they sure feel like insults. But fear will show up with all sorts of rhetoric, like, you're not strong enough. You know that, right? Look, every time you've done this, you've always failed. You remember that, right? Look, if you do this, you're not brave enough. Other people are, but you're not. You're not going to be enough. No one loves you. You're not going to, look, only if they tell you you're okay can you believe you're okay. Otherwise, it's just going to hurt too much to be let down. Fear will just start telling you all these hurtful things. But remember, look to your fear with compassion because fear is doing this out of love. Fear is trying to protect you. I once was trying to be fearless because I believed I needed to conquer fear. I believed that the answer was to not feel fear. On my journey, I discovered I was wrong. The goal never has been, actually, to not feel fear. The goal has always been to learn how to feel fear and act anyway. To adopt the heart of a champion, which is to be courageous. I love the word courageous. I love the word courage. Because courage is when you begin to rise above fear in your consciousness. You begin to move past it. Because when you are courageous, you feel fear and act anyway. In spite of the presence of fear, you act anyway. And the way to do that is to cultivate a sense of self-trust, putting faith in yourself. And the thing that will help with that is to begin now, right now, moving towards the place of accepting that you're enough. You don't need to do anything else to be loved by yourself. You don't need to do anything else to go to the mirror and look to yourself and say, I accept you just as you are. Warts and all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. All of it. You're perfect in my eyes, self. I was afraid to accept myself for as I was. But as I began to rise above letting fear control me in that way, to feel my own innate courage, to feel the fear and move forward anyway, my relationship with myself started to shift. But the only way that this worked is by leaving the future and leaving the past and living my life in day-tight compartments, going from moment to moment to moment. And the way that I would apply this on my weight loss journey, I'm going to wait till I'm hungry. And then when I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. And I'm going to stay present with myself while I eat. And when I notice the hunger feelings are gone, but before I'm full, I'm going to stop eating. I'm going to observe the feeling. I'm going to observe the emotions that I have as I do this. And I'm going to move on with my life, being patient. If I see a food that I want to eat, okay, I'll acknowledge here in the present moment, I would like to have that, but I'm not hungry. So let's wait. When I'm hungry, if I'd like to still have some, I can. I wanted to teach myself that every time I get hungry, I get to eat. And that's really what I wanted. That's freedom. When I'm hungry, I get to eat. Not when I'm hungry, I get to only eat certain foods. No, when I'm hungry, I get to eat. And I want you to feel the same thing. But you're going to teach yourself this in the present moment. But in the present moment, you're going to find your emotions. You're going to find fear there. And this is why it's important to not look at fear as something that needs to be absent so that you can take action, but instead recognizing that fear is supposed to be there. You're looking for it. It's a signal that you're doing something new. It's a signal that you're getting outside your comfort zone. And then you become a courageous champion. You feel the fear and act anyway, taking the uncomfortable action forward with faith in yourself, encouraging yourself the entire way. Why do you want the accolades of others? You want the accolades of others so that you will give yourself permission to feel like you did a good enough job. You're looking for it as validation of the experience you're wanting to give yourself. Why not just cut all that out and just cut straight to accepting yourself now and moving towards that? I know. It is hard to give up worrying about what people think about us as individuals. Trust me, I make a living online. I've had to learn to let it go because when I didn't, it consumed me. It's hard. Life is much more challenging when you spend all your time preoccupied with the opinions of others about you. But when you let that go, you'll find you've got a lot more mental cognition. You've got a lot more mental energy that can be refocused in other areas. And so to kind of wrap up here, Alcoholics Anonymous uses the same principle when they say, don't try to stop drinking forever. Merely say, I will not drink today. Practice becoming more consciously aware of your present environment. What sights, sounds, odors are present in your environment right now that you're not conscious of? Consciously practice looking and listening. Become alert to the feel of objects. How long since you have really felt the pavement beneath your feet as you walk? Connect with your world around you, my friend. Connect with yourself. This journey of weight loss is not about just dropping the pounds on the scale. I know that's what many of you want. But really what it's about moving beyond the place of living out of guilt and shame, and instead moving towards a place of peace with yourself. And you'll begin to see, I truly hope you'll begin to see along the journey that you don't need to lose another pound to be enough. You truly don't. You've already done all that is required to be enough. And I promise you won't give up on yourself when you accept yourself. Some of you might be possessing within you this worry, this doubt, that if you were to accept yourself for as you are now, you might stop trying. You might stop working towards your goal. I just want to encourage you to disbelieve that. It's a myth. The more you love yourself, the more you'll want to do for yourself because you'll deeply care. Go out and have a great week, champion. And I'll see you next week on the Chris Terrell Podcast.